January 5th, 2026. Welcome to This Week in Waukesha, the podcast series. This is podcast series or podcast episode number 2 for tonight, number 100 uh, offering of the show, including radio and podcast. And this is a celebration episode. This Week in Waukesha is a civic media production in cooperation with WAUK Radio, 540 AM, 101.1 FM. And I am your host, proud to be your host, downtown Donnie Browne, coming to you from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne here in our beloved Banting Park home. And speaking of home, I am joined by my really good friend, the mighty Max Martinson, our producer, uh, bringing all the digital magic from the comfort of his home in the Cream City, close to the MATC and PBS Milwaukee campuses. Max, welcome back.
Thank you.
And
I
Max
you
is
know,
kind of
I
what's
try
that?
I try my best, and this is a monumental occasion because this means I've gone 100 episodes without being fired by you. So I've
Ah,
I've done a good job so
oh,
far.
so these are just the podcasts that are 100 episodes. Okay,
Yes.
I thought that included radio.
No,
Okay, well,
just
good.
100 of podcasts.
It is 100 podcasts. Okay, well,
Because we
thank
because
you.
we do a part 1 and a part 2, so this is
We do,
technically
yep. So, yep,
100.
it does add up to 100. So, fantastic. Well, thanks for recognizing that and identifying it. And yeah, and kind of to celebrate, I do want to look back at the radio experience that brought me to podcast, and it all started with civic media, and prior to that, I'd kind of bounced around in different industries, hospitality, trade show, restaurants, trade shows, community publishing, which included working in international startup in my ancestral homeland in Ireland, which was like really one of the great opportunities of a lifetime. Even though it only lasted a year, it was certainly a great experience. And it was after that that I took that leap of faith and decided to hang my own shingle as a writer. When I was with a trade show company, I was, in addition to being marketing director, I was editor and publisher of a quarterly trade magazine for the off-price fashion industry, and it was an opportunity to interview a lot of old salts from the garment district in New York City, and as well as the garment district in Los Angeles, and meeting a lot of really interesting people that also had a lot of great brushes with greatness. And someone like me that is everyone knows is a huge baseball and softball Rounders fan, um, interviewing some of our customers, many of these exhibitors that grew up in Brooklyn when the Dodgers were still there, and got to meet Jackie Robinson and Sandy Koufax and some of the other legends. Willie Mays, who was down the road with the New York Giants, and I remember when I was interviewing one of the customers, they said, "You should have your own show. You should be doing that. You should be interviewing people all the time." And well, that didn't happen right away. I left the trade show company and took a leap of faith with a startup in design that it didn't work out. But when I did get back on my feet as a writer, it having my own business also afforded me the opportunity to run for local office, which is how I became the first district alderman for Waukesha for one term. And it was in the final year of that term when I again, with a lot of kind of, I guess, bad blood and ill feelings, because as many of you remember, I was because of the census, I lost my district in a redistricting. My home no longer existed in District 1. It's now part of District 2, although um, the neighborhood is still there. It's still a contiguous neighborhood, which is upsetting to a lot of my supporters and myself too. But we'll get away from that for a while. Obviously, it's people have their suspicions, but I did agree to march in the Christmas parade in November 21st, 2021. It was the first Christmas parade since the COVID outbreak. As many of you remember, there was no Christmas parade that year in 2020. And it started out as a really special day. I was actually in the front. I had, I think, the only, I guess, exhibit marching in front of Mayor Sean Riley and myself and Alderman Beth Wolson of the 8th District. We were the only three really marching on behalf of the city for the legislature and the executive branch. But we had Paul Farrell and his wife, the county executive, marching in front of us. And so we were at the very front. And uh, it was really, talk about a tale of two cities. It was a wonderful parade. There were so many smiles. It was very cross generational. Demographically, it's very diverse. All the people in attendance and the exchanges back and forth between those marching in the parade and those watching. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all the best. Many blessings. Whatever that was, it was really made me feel good again. And the end of the parade, I'm walking back to my car, and I see some friends in front of the courthouse, and we're having a good conversation, but my phone rings, and I had to take the phone. I had to take the call, and decided to say goodbye to my friends and walk to my car. And as I'm driving home and still talking to my friends, and don't do that, kids, but my wife texts me, and she's watching a Facebook live stream of the parade. She wasn't able to go. It was the first year that none of our kids were in the parade, and then my wife wasn't in the parade either. She would usually march as a Blazers baseball or softball mom, or else maybe with our older daughter's Anita's dance group. But and it was the first year that I marched in the parade. But she'd explained to me that someone had driven was driving a truck through the parade and hitting people, and it was and again, I was like less than 2 blocks from my house when I got in. No sooner did I get in, the phone was ringing, and it was media from all over the world that because I was District 1, I was the first person they saw on the website. So I spent a lot of time with the press during those 3 years. I answered a lot of calls, which I believe was my duty, and really spent the rest of the night um, telling people what I knew, and also trying to best represent the city. That this was not that what had happened was an isolated act by a very, I guess, disturbed individual, and there was no political motivations behind it. And I'd gotten a lot of great feedback from people from Waukesha, and also people from around, friends from around the world, about the way I'd handled it. And when one of the civic media founders first came to Waukesha looking for someone to host a Waukesha focused concept, I was referred to that person, and that's how I broke into radio. That was my big break. And so Saturday mornings initially at 10, and then I got moved to 8, and I loved it. And I mean, the very first episode, I had Mayor Sean Riley along with the varsity basketball coach at Waukesha South, then Bo Richter, and that was the year that South was one game away from going to state and winning the Classic 8 after like 60 straight losses in the previous season. So it was a really special year in that regard, especially after all the tragedy that had occurred. It really gave the city, something to feel really good about. And and the show, me too, I thought it was a great opportunity to really showcase the city and what made it special, and having a lot of great guests. And from radio and through podcasting, I got to interview um, everyday people, which what makes this city great, as well as local leaders, um, heroes of all sorts, firefighters, police. I had the different, police and fire chiefs on, and and actually, what probably one of my most memorable interviews on the radio, which I hope to have her back on podcast. Well, her father came, Mark Schrader, who's one of the Waukesha firemen, who many of you know. His daughter. It was, I believe, in 2023 now. Yeah, in the Thanksgiving of 2023, his then, I guess, 8-year-old daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. And so I interviewed him and a few other firemen that were raising money, and they were having a concert, I guess, the following week to raise money. And it was just a great opportunity to support the firemen and to support this family. And it was even more special to report on my show last fall that the family had announced on social media that their daughter Mary will be ringing the bell on January 28th, which all of us know is that she is um, she's achieved treatment, if you will, that that the cancer's gone as far as we know, and that there's just a lot of great optimism and joy. And if you've seen this little girl, I'm sure most of you had on social media or even on television now, she really is a character. But to see the hope that and the courage that she exhibited at such a young age, it's I'm blessed that I had the opportunity to know families like hers, and I haven't met her yet. I did get to speak to her on the radio. She called in the show, and that was special. But um, yeah, so many other instances like that. Talking to people that were part of this. So, speaking of the parade tragedy, I've had Tyler Pudliner on the show. He was one of the victims of the parade attack. In fact, he was on um, right in there in December to promote his bobbleheads philanthropy and some great gift ideas. And then I also had a one at one time I had Eric Teagues. And Eric and Tyler both played baseball with my son growing up. And Eric was the one that a lot of people didn't think he was going to even survive based on how he was injured. I'm not going to repeat how it all, but um, 6 months after that attack in April, he was pitching. He was starting. He was on the mound for Waukesha South. He wasn't ready to hit and run or really play the field, but he could pitch. And I remember a lot of the local news outlets showed up, and I had the honor of announcing the game and announcing Eric Teagues as a starting pitcher. And amazing moments. Yeah, and a year later, like later on in that season, he was able to play the field and hit and run. And then in his senior year, in his first home game, same thing. NBC News came to do a special, and I had the honor again of announcing and introducing him on the bat, and they caught a bit of that. And it's just it's humbling to be part of that story and to see this young man continue to grow. He's playing baseball in college at Polite College, living his best life. Amazing student. I believe he was there on an academic scholarship too. Just a really bright kid and great family. His father, Don, was also a fireman, and brother Tyson, great kid, great basketball player. Played for South. Was one of the big men, and and I believe he's following in his father's footsteps. I believe he's working to become a fireman, or he's in training. And so, just so many wonderful families. And I've lived a lot of places. Born and raised in Buffalo, New York. Grew up in the same town where the Buffalo Bills play, and went to school at Michigan State, lived in Washington, D.C. for a year, went back to grad school at Michigan State, got to live in Chicago. Most of that time was at Evanston that I loved. I thought I'd never leave Evanston, but that city's changed a lot. But coming to Waukesha was really special for me and my family. It was a great start for us here. And I remember my younger son, Evan, I was picking him up at one of the parks. Oh gosh, what's the park? But he told me he was driving home. He said, "Thank you for moving to Waukesha." And he was only like middle school age, but he really loved living in Waukesha with all the parks that they had and all the friends that he made and all the different things he could do, he could participate in. And that made me feel good, and certainly made my wife Melissa feel great too. That this is a special city, and also to developing connections with Carroll University, the state's oldest university, and their contributions to city life here. And I had the honor of broadcasting Carroll football on the radio for a while and some of the basketball games, mostly women's. And it's neat that we can continue to be connected with Carroll. My son is entering his sophomore year there, and joined the football team this year. And that's been a great experience for him, especially since his dream is to come back and teach at Waukesha South and hopefully coach as well. So yeah, that was terrific. But going back to the podcast too, um, we we made some headlines, maybe not the best headlines, some controversial headlines, but I guess as we know from a lot of people that oftentimes bad press is good, and bad publicity is good publicity for the business. But there was, I guess you could say, I got kind of a verbal tongue lashing because in two interviews I had with Sam D'Amico, who was a candidate for the state assembly as well as for the school board, I had again mistaken that I thought that he had graduated from Waukesha South, and he hadn't. And um, I know the Freeman had really pounced on that, and it seemed like the intent was to maybe embarrass him because they didn't think he spoke out enough about it. but I think it was also an attempt to, kind of darken my reputation. But I took it in stride, and it is, this is local media, and so there was an amateur quality to it, and then I certainly own my mistakes, and I'm sure I'll be making a lot more. But it is good though that if it drives people to listen to the podcast and contribute, and hopefully attract more people to participate, because everyone's got a great story, and I want to hear your story if you have one. And it's oftentimes the ordinary person that lives the most extraordinary life, and really that's all of us. I've had the privilege of interviewing neighbors. My one neighbor, Rob Kuzner, who does some really amazing stuff with UW Milwaukee's power electronics program. As he said, Google UWM grapes, all caps, and you'll learn about grapes is the acronym for the program that he runs. And they do some really amazing power electronics work for the Navy, the U.S. Navy, as well as for other local and I believe worldwide manufacturing concerns. And, that's a part of our life here. I've had, who else did I get to interview? Other, former members of the city council. My successor, Mike Razine, has been very generous about sharing his time in the show. Lisa Halvin-Slavin, who's now running for mayor, I believe current council president. Um, Joe Piper made an appearance on the show, the fourth district alderman, and this was great to reconnect with some of those, I guess, old friends, if you will, and have them share their stories. I always got a lot of great support from the Parks Department. We always had different people, like Mary Berg before her retirement was on the show, Joanna Adamecki, and as well as the different what do you call the people that were in charge of the tree program. There were at least two of them that participated. The one retired, Mike Talaska, wonderful guy. In fact, when I was an alderman, he at one of my quarterly meetings with constituents, he came, did a really wonderful presentation that the constituents really enjoyed, and got a lot of great knowledge out of the tree program. Waukesha's all won these national awards, like Tree City USA, and it was because of people like Mike Talaska. And his successor now, I believe his name is Aaron Lehner. He was on the show with Mary Berg, um, and that's it for a city with a big manufacturing tradition. And it does that. You also have a lot of this green space, and you have great trees and great parks, and a lot for families to enjoy. A lot of great nature for families to enjoy, and that's important. And it is important, those people from parks, yeah. And Joanna would come on to also promote the Winter Jamboree, one of the great Wisconsin winter traditions that draws people from all over for all the fun things we do. And that's right around the corner as well. So maybe we'll see if we can get some appearances, or else get some after the Jamboree, get some good perspectives on that. But we've also had, we celebrated Waukesha's great music tradition. We've had different musicians come on the show, or people that are also involved in the guitar tradition started by Les Paul. And so it was really fun having a lot of those guests on. I remember, you want to talk about history too. A couple summers ago, there was to be in July of 2024. It was the 25th anniversary of the tragedy at Miller Park with the ironworkers that were killed, and I was honored. The ironworkers local 8 set this up. I was able to do a phone interview with Bob Habish, who litigated um, that case, and shared a lot of interesting insights that many of us didn't know about that tragedy. And so again, it was humbling, and a real honor to be a part of sharing that history on media, radio, and podcasts. And so as we Max is giving me the warning here in the final minute, and for those listening, if you have a story, someone who has a story, and it's especially if it's the kids that are in school, or those that have worked in one capacity or another in Waukesha, or have grown up here. Um, they've all got a story that we'd like to hear, we'd like to share, we'd like to celebrate. And I want to thank everybody for being a part of this journey, both back and forth, and then the Waukesha experiment. And again, I encourage greater participation. There's always room for guests. every week. Max and I do two 20-minute podcasts, and you can get a lot done in 20 minutes too. And sometimes most of the time, we'll get people to stick around and do two podcasts. So, but anyway, I cannot say enough how grateful I am to Civic Media, to people like Max Martinson, and all the leadership, all the great, as they continue to grow too. It's neat that they're still very committed to local media and doing more exciting things with podcast. And I look forward to growing with that as well. So, how are we doing on time here, Max? Are we into the 30-second mark? Yep, that is it. So, um, thanks again to everybody. Please remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. Good mental health is everybody's right. Continue to act locally, think globally, and we will look forward to touching base with you next week. Look for me on social media too. Love to hear from you. Go Ramila Mahagav Goler, and see ya.